Okay, this may not be a good sounding narration, but just want to mention all the stuff that I've been through trying to see if we could get Jacktrip running in an Amazon server. It is not simple. I went through the process of using Ubuntu 18.04 LTS because I heard from Chris that there should be no problem. And it turns out that a lot of the things that you have to install with DNF install either have different names or don't exist under the regular names. And so, but even before I got into that, I found out that it was very hard to get VNC working on Ubuntu because of all sorts of configuration files, and VNC depends on X11, which depends on GNOME Desktop and things like that. So all sorts of hassle. Then I found that you could get Amazon machine images to preloaded with VNC server, and I sort of got that working, but not enough. Well, I got that working on Ubuntu, but that didn't help because of all the conflicts or the different names when you have to use apt-get instead of DNF, like on Fedora. So I ended up finding out from Chris that there is one guy that he could put us in touch with that did install Jacktrip and Jack on Ubuntu 18.04. So he's somebody we could talk to tomorrow, but then we don't know how long it's going to take to get his time. And I have to cough. Hang on. Excuse me. Ooh. Anyway, then I said, I wonder if there's some Fedora, pre-made Fedora Amazon machine images out there, because I couldn't find them earlier. And I'll explain how I found those and how I found the Ubuntu machine images with VNC pre-configured. So let's go to aws.amazon.com. Okay, so I'm going to sign in, and let's see. Come on now. Okay, password. I don't know what the password is, but it rhymes with Bandapati. Okay. So I currently do have an instance running on Fedora, but I want to show how I got that Fedora instance. So let's go back here to running instances. Why didn't it do what I wanted? Okay. So I have a T2.large, which is kind of expensive, but it's probably okay to test with for a day or two or three. Tweaky's on a much lower cost one that's $17 a month. This one might be $60 a month or $40 a month. That's fine for what we're testing. All right, so anyway, that happens to be a Fedora one here. If you look down to the Amazon, wait a minute, Amazon machine image ID, it says supported images Fedora 31 base minimal image golden AMI. And so the way I got that, first of all, when you launch an instance, you have a choice of some limited number of Windows and Linux distros. Okay. However, nothing here for Fedora. So if you go to AWS Marketplace and you type in Fedora, okay, you have different Fedora versions, which is cool. Now, I don't know why we have all these other things. So we know that we were using Fedora 31 on the nukes. And so I had tried Fedora 31 minimal, and I was having some kind of weird problems. And at least it does say updated April 6th. That's nice to see. So I saw this other one, base minimal image golden AMI, and I thought since it's golden, maybe it's better. Similar updated time, March 31st. It's a Fedora server, though, and we only use Fedora Workstation. I didn't think that that would be a big deal. But anyway, so this is from another company. Okay, and what companies do is they create an image with software and allow you to install that image, and then as you use it, you pay a little surcharge that goes to that company. So if you, let's see, the software per hour, 5-cent surcharge, and it actually varies. So we have the T2.extra large, 20 cents surcharge for the T2.extra large. Got that because it's 4 virtual cores, and I heard a rumor that the jack trip server sessions depend on number of virtual cores or something. Anyway, so 40 cents an hour, $10 a day, 40 cents an hour, 24 hours, 4/10 of that. Yeah, like $10 a day. Anyway, we can do that for a day or two for testing, and then find out, how much it's going to cost. But anyway, the idea is half of that $10 a day goes to the people that are using their software on this instance. Okay, now I don't know enough about the T3s and the T whatever, so I just got a T2.extra large because of the 4 cores and all that. Now the other thing I've done is I've done it in US West Northern California. So there's also a US West Oregon. But what I've done is I've done US West Northern California, and then some of these Amazon Marketplace machine images are for ARM processors. We don't want that. We want anything that's a x86, and that I guess includes AMD support. So some of these things are on Amazon, and they're actually AMD. So anyway, let's just go ahead and start one up so you guys know what I did. So this was just the description of the AMI. And by the way, we could easily put jacktrip servers on an AMI and sell it for some extra surcharge per hour. So I'm going to go back here and launch an instance. So I'm going to say, I'm doing what I did earlier, and I'm going to say, let's launch Fedora 31 base minimal image golden. And again, I tried Fedora 31 minimal, and it didn't really have everything working right. The interesting thing is there is no Fedora 31 workstation that I can tell. So that's why just going with this one here. I don't know why we have to have something called base minimal. Anyway, so I'm going to select that. And then it's just giving price range. And it also tells you down here in the fine print usage instructions. Once it's running, connect to it with an SSH client. The default username is Fedora. And then sudo runs username. Oh, SS. So you log in as user Fedora. And then the key that it will utilize is a key pair that there's one already in the account there that I've already downloaded and converted with PuttyGen. But anyways, so what I've done, I said I want to launch an instance using the base golden AMI Fedora, whatever it was. And then it asked me, okay, what specific system type do you want? And I don't know why I chose the T2.extra large. Well, it's 4 cores, 16 gigs. So the 4 cores, again, I was just doing that because of some recent stuff about number of cores versus number of stations or locations on jacktrip. Okay, T2.extra large is the instance, and it's not eligible for the free usage tier. That's more like a T3.nano or something. That doesn't matter. That wouldn't help us anyway. I'm trying to go a little bit more aggressive on the memory and virtual cores just to save us any hassle that might come from not having enough power. Okay, now I made a key pair called AWS Jacktrip Key Pair 25 April 2020 _SC. So I will, you may be able to download that, or you could always make a new key pair. You can always say up here, create a new key pair if you're making one of these. And again, you guys don't have to make a new instance, but I'm showing you what I did. So I've got a key pair already in my downloads folder that I made. They give you a PEM, and then you have to convert it to PPK for PuTTY using PuTTyGen. Okay. So it says it's now launching, and I'll go to instances, and we see this one here is running, but this one is running initializing. So this is the one that we just installed. Okay, and then the thing to keep in mind is the security groups. That's where the firewalls are. So if I click on security groups, it is selecting. It does a filter up here, so you can clear the filters and see that there's multiple security groups. Okay. And you also notice that there's a couple here with the same similar name, Golden AMI here. So to get back to the security group that corresponds to this brand new image that's booting up, I'm going back here to trying to open up. Okay, come on now. We're trying to find the instances. Well, let's go back and click on instances. Okay. So again, this one's the initializing, and remember it by the 222. Somehow, if you click on it, then you get down here at the bottom, and it says security groups. So that takes us to the specific security group only. So it's filtered by the one for this new instance. And by the way, in the description, it says the security group was generated by AWS Marketplace. So they give you a firewall configuration with the Marketplace machine image that you're paying extra hourly fees for. Now you notice it's only got SSH allowed, and we can just add more ports. So we'll add a rule to, and custom TCP is what we want, custom UDP, custom meaning port range. Okay, so let's say we want 5901 for PNC, and we want the source to be anywhere. And the anywhere gives you two places, any IP address, and then this : /0 means any IP address coming from Cochibamba. I don't know. I have no idea what that is. Anyways, and that's TCP 5901. And then we might want to have UDP 5201. 5201 from anywhere. And then we want, and that would be for the IPERF3. And that's UDP. We also want TCP for IPERF3, since we want to do both. 5201. And then we want that source column, we want to say from anywhere is allowed. And then we just say save rules. And what we've done now is we've saved rules to this particular security group that originally came with the Marketplace image. And then it has all the inbound rules here. Outbound rules doesn't quite matter because it says all traffic is allowed for all protocols to all ports to all destinations. So there's nothing cutting off anything going outbound, which is sometimes we might want to do that. Anyway, the inbound rules, you notice it did separate out the 000/0 and then the : /0. So I don't know what the : /0 is, but that might be just some kind of rule between instances or something. Now, so we have that opened up for these things coming in, and we would eventually put jacktrip 4464 in there and all that kind of stuff. And maybe, you know, if we wanted 5902 for a second VNC display number or something, if we needed to, probably don't. So I'm going back to instances, okay? And this one here is running, okay? And so I'm going to just SSH to it, copying that IP. And then I'm going to say boom, 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 and open. And then the key Okay, so login here is Fedora, not Ubuntu. And then it doesn't have the key attached. So that's my PuTTY configuration problem. So fortunately, I have one that already has the same key attached, because you get to use the same key in as many instances as you decide you want it to be. And then I'm just saving it again as another one. Here's a save, open, and then I'm going to log in as Fedora. And then it already knows that I had the key that was there from before. And from here, you can do all the same, pretty much all the same stuff in the installation procedure. It seems to work, most of it. Everything looks pretty good because we're using Fedora 31, just like on the nukes. But I did face some weird stuff, okay? So this is just letting you know how to take it from an existing machine. Now, keep in mind that excuse me, there is no jacktrip admin, so that has to be added with user add. And then you have to put it in the audio group and then the wheel group also, so that it has access to some of the commands. And then you have to somehow set it up for sudo privileges for jacktrip admin. And end result is, I don't know if we should even be using jacktrip admin on here, because that may be where things goofed up for me. So it might be worth starting fresh and not even using a user called jacktrip admin. That might solve some of the problems that I'm running into. So I'm going to control D out of here, and I'm going to kill this instance actually. So actions instance state stop, and then I will wait till it's stopped. Or maybe see if I can do it here. Terminate. I don't know if that'll terminate yet. Are you sure you want to terminate? Yes. So that's going to say shutting down. It'll say terminated, and it'll stay in the account under the instance state of terminated for a couple hours, and then it goes away. Again, make sure that if you're looking at this stuff, you don't get confused by the region, because it says there's only one instance running, but in truth, we have Tweaky running as well on US East Northern Virginia. Okay. So I'm just mentioning that up there in the top dashboard, you can be fooled by which instance is which, depending on what you select. Now, what's cool is once we do this, we'll be able to play with Mumbai and Singapore and see if we can do some cool lower latency stuff with jacktrip by putting this server for jacktrip in Mumbai or Singapore. Okay, so now let's go back here. We're going to go play with this whatever.9 here. Okay, so I have that already in there with the key. Okay, open, and so log in as Fedora. Okay, now in here I've added user jacktrip admin, and I've changed passwords to tomato pulse on user Fedora, and I think user root, which I'll tell you why user root is relevant, and I don't know if I like this. I'm going to go in there for Ultra VNC, and then with Ultra VNC and any other VNC, I hate it because you can't really pre-select the user that it goes in with, except that's in the VNC server stuff. Probably it won't work because I didn't start VNC server. Okay, so VNC server, and let's see if it asks for a password or not. It shouldn't. Okay, good. And again, I just did this using the same VNC server, install Tiger VNC server that was in our existing procedure. Okay, now Ultra VNC connecting to port 5901, and the password here, TOMATOPU, and it says up here, oh, it's interesting. This time it says that I'm logged in as Fedora. Okay. Now here's where this is totally screwed, because there's absolutely nothing we get here. It's just a greenish color thing. So I can do all sorts of things, but nothing happens. And that could be because of all sorts of crazy reasons. Like the fact that it's on Amazon means it may not have any of the proper desktop stuff running. Because with VNC Server, even if you have that running, it sort of depends on, GNOME Desktop and all that stuff. Well, guess what? That stuff is automatically included when you do Fedora Workstation. But Fedora Server is designed to run, in a server room with just shell access, let's say. You would think that people would want to use the VNC on it, but end result is, if we had a Amazon machine image with Fedora Workstation, it probably would give us a desktop here. And I was able to get a desktop with Ubuntu eventually. It only took 4 hours. But again, Ubuntu has completely different names for the repository type things, like apt-get install and then RT audio. It won't even find RT audio because that's not something findable with apt-get install, or at least without finding a repository name and adding it to a repository list, which I tried for an hour or more to do. Okay, so end result, there's probably some desktop stuff that we could find in there, like GNOME Desktop or whatever desktops are available that would come with the workstation. And then if that goes on there, then we can continue with like QJack CTL and stuff like that. But basically, I'm going to leave this image running, which is this one here. Ends in the IP address ends in .9. I'll leave that running, but feel free to stop it or leave it running and launch a new one if you want with a new Amazon image. But keep in mind that there was no Fedora Workstation image that I could find. And then, but maybe if you want to just take it from this situation of green connection from VNC, maybe that's just a matter of loading up the right desktop environment, which is just the X11, all sorts of stuff that goes along with that, and the graphics and all sorts of weird crap. I'm going to pause this now while I look for something about desktop. So hang on. Okay, I am back, and I just did a quick thing to see if there was any info on how to deal with this blank screen here on VNC server results. And I thought it might have something to do with the fact that we're using a server. So I did a search, VNC desktop, for Fedora 31 server, desktop being the keyword. Came up with a lot of crazy stuff, one of which is this book. And it's a preview of a book. And I don't know where to get the actual book, but it's got a good name. And it's from 2020. And so it's, if you look at VNC, Fedora 31 remote desktop access with VNC, secure and insecure remote desktop, installing the GNOME desktop environment. So that's where we're probably running into problems, because again, this is being a server, it doesn't have any reason to have the desktop environment. And so it turns out that there's info on the GNOME desktop in here, and it does refer you to, what is it, more detail, Fedora 31 remote desktop access with VNC chapter. Anyway, that chapter is not in here, so we have to find out where to get the book. But I think what I'm going to do is see if I can get this book. But in the meantime, I'm going to email a link to this, and I will email that key file that will let you get straight into this instance here, which is the 54.183.186.9 IP address. And that's the key name, by the way, here. That's the file I'm going to be sending you. It's called, no, it's not opening up. So let me put up that. No, trying to expand it and it's not working. Nope. Anyway, AWS Jack Trip Key. Okay, that's the scoop. Again, feel free to stop this if you want, launch any instances if you want. Again, if you want to see what's in the marketplace, launch an instance and AWS Marketplace and then search up here. I haven't tried community AMIs. Let's just check for a second here. Fedora, we're looking for Fedora 30 or for Fedora 31. HVM means hardware virtual machine. Maybe this one would be usable. Again, I didn't see these before because I never looked in community. But let's look. Oh, and notice here 64-bit x86. Some of these are other 32-bit x86. We don't want that. Anyways, and we probably don't want Fedora 8. But let's see, architecture. And then this root device type, don't know if that matters. EBS is something like elastic block storage or something. So these are just more AMIs that you can actually get. And virtualization type, hardware virtual machine, ENA enabled, no idea what that is. Some of these are actually specific for the region. So US West 1, maybe that's where it's always located, which is California, which is fine if you just choose that. And I'm looking to see if anything else says workstation here. So let's just check workstation, Fedora workstation. And no results in the community AMIs or the current filters. Clear your filters to see all results. 35 results. Now the 31 minimal, I still think that was server, but you may want to try it. So I would try that again. I just happen to have had some problems with this, but I would try Fedora 31 unless it's a server. Let's see one thing. So built using Fedora Cloud Server group of packages, both root partition and corresponding file system, blah, blah, blah. Minimal Fedora 31 image. Anyways, that's the goal, is just see if there's a way to get either a new Fedora 31 minimal, see if that comes up as a workstation with the desktop already in there. Otherwise, I'm going to send a link to this thing that talks about installing Fedora, we don't want that, VNC GNOME desktop on Fedora server. Okay, that is that. Look for an email with this link. Look for an email with the server key. And just remember that this is all still live for you as long as you log in as chafe@innovatech.com. On that note, let me sing Bum Diggy Diggy very loudly in this video. Or not. I guess not.